Well, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folarin. We started this conversation yesterday looking at the withdrawal from ECOWAS of three important members, talking about Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. And so we'll continue today. Yesterday, we had a statement. This morning, we have an ambassador with us. And so, good morning to you, Ambassador Onyeagba, Ambassador Elijah Onyeagba. Good morning.
A very good morning to you, my brother, and good morning to Nigerians.
Thank you very much. One way, well, by way of asking you what you feel about what is happening, I heard an elder a professor refer to the situation as we appear to be in a crisis in ECOWAS because of what has happened. But I just said that by way of background. I wonder what your take is on the pronouncement of these three countries that they are pulling out of ECOWAS with immediate effect, not even allowing the 1 year that is stipulated in the terms and conditions of membership.
Thank you so very much. We are in an unfortunate situation. I totally understand the challenges that the regional body is going through at this particular point in time. You know, ECOWAS was founded in 1975. That's about 48, 49 years ago. And part of the protocol and the treaty that put together these 15 member states are very clear. A treaty was signed to that effect. And you know that this latest announcement by the government of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger is basically a direct response to the sanctions that were placed on them by the regional body. You know, under the treaty, there was actually no provision for recognizing juntas, you know, within the region, and decisions that are made by the military junta. And the regional body has basically imposed financial sanctions and other restrictions, just making it difficult or trying to find a diplomatic solution to addressing those challenges in such a way that, you know, just to get them to come to the table. This is basically what you find everywhere around the world, where you have military interventions, where you have absence of democratically elected governments. You know, regional bodies, big countries in the world just try to find a way to impose sanctions, economic sanctions that will force the people to come to the table to have a conversation. And that's not different from what we have seen the ECOWAS body do to these three countries in the last 6, 7, 8 months or thereabouts. You know, now it's biting harder, and this discussion or this decision, you know, 2 days ago has come up as this is basically, if you like, call it resistance coming from the three military rulers. And if you look at the map of West Africa, you will find where Niger is. Niger, Mali, and of course, directly under them is Burkina Faso. So there is actually some level of interconnectedness between these three countries. And what are they basically saying? In the last 6 months or thereabouts, we have evidently found a situation where these three countries have more or less severed their ties with countries like France, and you know, that has been playing a major role in the activities in those countries. And of course, they've also severed relations with other European Union, you know, that have European Union nations that have got relations with them, and they've suddenly turned to Russia for some kind of assistance. But you see, the case of ECOWAS, it has a protocol. There was a treaty. And in that protocol, it allows for movement, free movement of goods, people, and services across the countries. So you can imagine Nigeria, for example, the entire northern Nigeria, about 5 or 6 states or thereabouts, have got boundaries with Niger Republic. And in fact, if you get there, what you find is that the people actually live very closely like brothers and sisters. So, you know, when the president or the junta in Niger says they are pulling out of ECOWAS, I'm not very sure that he has really thought about the full implication, because the implication now means that that border has to be closed somehow, and there has to be a different memorandum of understanding as to how there will be movement of people across the border. And, what about the families? What about goods? What about services? And don't forget that Nigeria has had a long-term relations with Niger Republic, whether Nigeria provides them power, Nigeria assists them in security. And in the last administration, there was even an attempt to have the rail project get into Maradi so that we can now ensure that goods can be, imported through Nigeria into Niger Republic. So these are all of the issues and benefits that actually arise as a result of being brothers and, of course, becoming part of ECOWAS. And now, all of a sudden, they are saying that they are pulling out. I don't know how this is going to look like because Article 91, basically, of the ECOWAS Treaty talked about the withdrawal. It says, Article 91, subsection 1, that says that any member states wishing to withdraw from the community shall give to the executive secretary 1 year notice in writing, who shall inform member states thereof. At the expiration of this period, if such notice is not withdrawn, such a state shall cease to be a member of the community. The second subsection 2 there says that during the period of the 1 year, such a member state shall continue to comply with the provisions of this treaty and shall remain bound to discharge its obligations under the treaty. So, I mean, these are laws, these are treaties that has been made over the years, So I also don't. Maybe yes. I will use as a notice that they've given, but I believe that finding solutions, we must resort to diplomatic solutions to this impasse.
Indeed, because there are treaties which essentially are agreements, but as you said, they also have the force of law behind them. Now, it's clear, as you mentioned inter alia there, that they've lost patience with France. You don't need to be an expert for your eyes to be boggled at the conditions under which France and Niger, for instance, are existing. I don't think it will be acceptable to any Nigerian. The whole matter of the central bank, you know everything about France, and it's unimaginable to a Nigerian. Now, these people, especially in Niger, they've sort of, I don't want to imply that they've been sleeping all this while, but they have said that thus far and no further. We are sick and tired of it. We can't continue to live like this. And then also importantly, this is what our people want. Now, people like us, Nigeria, big brother, so-called, we see it from a point of view of it's no more fashionable to have these coups, and indeed, nobody should be talking about coups in any of the member states. But they say that we are being unsympathetic to their aspirations. And they've all but considered us as an enemy. They haven't gone quite as far, but some of the things they've been doing have not been very, very friendly in terms of diplomatic protocol. They've refused to meet with some people, some eminent people that went to sort of mediate in issues. So it's like they've had it up to here, and they seem to be saying that that is, the rest of ECOWAS and all its treaties and all its laws, simply don't understand. Now, do you think it is important that they seem to have the popular support of their people in wanting to go their own way if, as they have phrased it, Nigeria and the rest of ECOWAS are not supporting them?
Okay, here you've made the very very salient points in this conversation, and there are two things, and I'd like to have them separated. There has been concerns over the years with respect to the role the French government have played in Africa. It's been very, very worrisome, and as someone that is involved in international relations and diplomacy, it has come to a time where I believe that Africa needs to sit back and rethink their engagement with Europe and some of the Western world. A lot has happened, and if you go back into history, there has actually been an unacceptable relations and, with respect to what France and some of these Francophone countries have been through over the years. I totally understand that. And whatever form of resistance, I understand that we need to find a way to address those issues. Another question is, to what extent will a coup d'etat, what role or how does a coup d'etat really help in addressing these issues? And I'll liken it to saying that it is easy for them to come out and say that this is what our country wants. This is what the people want. But you know that anybody that takes over, if people are going through any kind of difficulty, even in Nigeria, for example, when there's an election, you're likely to find people saying that this is what our people want. You're also likely to find other people from the other point of view to say that this is also not our people want, or this is not what our people want. So I understand the challenge of saying that this is what people want. But in this era, we have grown to a level where we believe that whatever changes we want to see, whatever policy amendments we intend to have in our government with respect to engagement with the rest of the world, we must find a system that is legitimate under the democratic rule to be able to carry out those amendments. What am I saying? I'm saying that they've got their state and national assemblies, they've got their legislative arm of government, they've got their executive arm of government. They must find a way to sit down and rethink and find a way to address the concerns that they have, especially with respect to the relations that they have with France. I mean, it's not, this is not what I think I need to discuss now, but clearly, the roles that these European nations have played in Africa has actually been totally unacceptable. It's like, I once was Nigerian ambassador to Burundi, and I was very close to DRC. And I could understand the reason why there can never be peace in DRC. I can understand the role that European nations played in Africa. They just sat down somewhere in Berlin and then brought out a map and then begin to split it amongst themselves. And clearly, this is how you now have Germany controlling this part, Britain controlling this part, France controlling this part, and so on and so forth. These guys have actually done what is totally unacceptable within the continent. But the idea or the issue is, having found yourself in this kind of situation, what do you do? It won't take time. Even if the junta continues to become, to lead the country, after some time, they are going to get worried. Under what arrangement? When are they going to have the next elections? Whose turn will it be to produce the leader, and at what point? And all of these issues. So I believe very well that rightly they have concerns. They've expressed their concerns, which I believe that what needs to happen is for the people to give back power to, under a democratically elected government. They need to begin to sit down and make laws and make policies and bring the issues up at the regional body. Part of the strong pillars of this administration is support for democracy. If you look at the Mr. President's 4D doctrine for his foreign policy, the first is democracy. Nigeria is now one of the largest democracies within the continent. We've been, since 1999 up until now, we have transited from one democratically elected government to another. So basically what Mr. President is saying, that he stands for democracy. His support for democracy, both across the region and across the continent, is unrivaled. So as far as Nigeria is concerned, it's important that whatever challenges that they have as a nation, there must be democratically elected government that will need to sit down and look at these issues and begin to engage with the regional body and with the continent and even with the rest of the world under a very under a platform that makes the conversation easier to have. And we cannot say that our people want this. I mean, I will continue to draw the inference from our relations between Nigeria and Niger. How do you now begin to come and say that, no, you now need visas to come into Nigeria? Where does the borders actually even exist? Some of these borders are even virtual in my thinking. You see, people are just moving across and all of that. And all of a sudden you say, because the regional body has instituted sanctions, therefore you now require visa. Things are going to be much more harder for these countries. There's no two ways about that. Once people cannot move from one location to another, once you now begin to place tariffs, so for you to now move goods from Nigeria to Niger Republic or to any of these countries, you have to pay tariff. For you to fly into the countries, there are different and renegotiated BASA agreements and all of that. So I'm not very sure that these three countries has thought through this. I think this is a direct response to the frustration that came as a result of the sanctions. But like I said again, this is international relations, this is diplomacy. I believe, with the whole of my heart that within this 1 year period, everybody will come to the table and look at the pros and cons of this decision. And I believe that there will eventually we will come to a diplomatic solution to addressing this impasse.
That is if they are agreeable to following the rule that you are implying there, that particular article that we put up there, that, member countries need to give a year. And during that time, they will do all the needful, all their obligations, they will carry them out. So if they are agreeable, I imagine, okay, yeah, that will give time for all these diplomatic overtures to take place. But let me take you elsewhere, but still connected. It would seem people seem to think that this is at the, if not at the behest, at least with the active encouragement of Russia. As you know the situation there. Give me your thoughts on the role that you think Russia allegedly could be playing in all of this. I don't know that they've said anything public yet, but first, do you suspect that Russia could be one of those who have given the nod for this action?
Yes. Yes, there's no suspicion about it. Usually, what happens in this kind of situation is that you continue to have consultations. And like I said, if you look at the map of West Africa, you will find out that these three countries in question they are contiguous. They have common borders amongst themselves. In fact, you can even draw a map and make all of three of them one country.
That's right.
You've got Niger, you've got Mali, and they're sitting right underneath them. At the southern part of both countries is Burkina Faso as well. So I have no doubt in my, and don't forget that there was also a time that I think it was Burkina Faso that was trying to get Russia to have like a base or something around somewhere in the country. So there's no doubt in my mind that there's support. There may be, let me not even be very, very, let me not be very categorical about this. But yes, suspicion actually exists that there could be support from Russia, and you don't blame the country, in every sense of it, having, an understanding of what they've been through with their relations, especially, when it comes to their relations with France. So these issues are there, but there will always be a limit to what even Russia can do for them. There will always be a limit. Like I said, that there are economic ties that has spanned over the years, even before the ECOWAS treaty. Countries like Nigeria, there's actually an NNJC, the Nigerian Niger Joint Commission. And Nigeria is actually putting a lot of money in ensuring that the NNJC is actually thriving. So beyond even the regional association, some of these regional body, ECOWAS, Nigeria and Niger have got quite a lot in common. So I'm not very certain as to what options the Russians will be, be providing for these three countries. But we watch and see. Like I said, usually in physics, they say that action and reaction are equal and opposite. What the regional body have done is not different from what you find all over the world. You see countries that are having issues, you see sanctions being imposed on them one way or the other. And incidentally, in this case, it's not just even the countries, even individuals in the country that are supporting the junta also have sanctions placed on them. For example, if you want to make transfer from that country to another country or within Nigerian or whatever, the central, usually you find the regulators within the financial system all alert to ensuring that these sanctions actually get to the people so that they will come to the table to begin to talk. So I have looked at the situation. I think it's a case of, okay, now you've done this to us, then we also think we can pull out, let us, but these things are easier said than done. Like I said again, if you look at the West African coast and the interconnectedness and how people move, it's from Nigeria to Benin, from Benin to Ghana, from Ghana to Cote d'Ivoire, from Cote d'Ivoire, somewhere Gambia, up until Senegal and all of that. So if you look at the movement of people, and then if you start going upwards, you begin to also find Burkina Faso, Mali, and all of that. It's not as easy as no, we've just, the people are going to suffer. And this hardship is actually going to bite, that's why I'm saying I'm not quite certain Russia is thousands and thousands of miles away from what is going on within this axis. But I believe, again, like I said, they've said what they said. I believe that there will be a lot of back and forth. The diplomats, the people that are responsible, will need to sit with them and then find a way.
Yes, indeed, because they are quite important. The group of them, if they were to leave, that's almost just about half of the ECOWAS body itself. But the other thing, of course, is that what do you make of overtures that were made by them? They tried to summon a meeting by inviting member countries to come and talk about this particular move. Of course, well, when I say of course, member countries ignored them. But Togo attended that meeting. What do you make of that? Because there are people who are saying that it's hardly their place, considering that they are suspended from ECOWAS, to be summoning any or inviting or seeking to convene any sort of meeting. They did, just as they have done the other thing that you are saying, that well, they said what they said. What do you make of Togo actually attending?
Well, honestly, I'm actually even very surprised that Togo attended the meeting. Reason is because the Treaty of ECOWAS actually doesn't recognize juntas in terms of decision making on behalf of the country. So you can even call to question what has happened in terms of the uploads from ECOWAS, whether that is even legal or otherwise. But of course, there's also ECOWAS courts that have got jurisdictions to look at these things and make pronouncements that obviously will be binding on the countries. But I'm actually very surprised that countries like Togo were under which treaty, under what law actually are they summoning meetings. I think what needs to happen is that there has to be a way forward, and the way forward is engagement. The way forward is diplomacy. The way forward is that there has to be a lot of talk. Everybody has to come to a table to discuss these issues. And if I even isolate
sorry, Mr. Ambassador. Sorry, Mr. Ambassador, for interrupting. Are you optimistic that that stage can be reached, seeing as they've, preemptorily, just decided and declared that with immediate effect? How do you now get them back to the table? Or, look, that is the work of diplomacy, and mountains can be moved with diplomacy?
No, honestly, I'm very convinced. Like I said, this is as a result of direct response to the economic sanctions that they're facing. So it's like, you're asking yourself, you're between the devil and the deep blue sea. What do you do? There are certain things that the countries are not able to do as a result of the sanctions that has been placed on them by the regional body. And therefore, they're asking themselves, what do we do? Maybe because we're even contiguous, maybe if we do certain things, maybe that will also get them to look at the situation again. I think what they've done, if you ask me, is that they've tried to force that conversation to happen. That's my very, I don't know whether that's what they have in mind, but my suspicion is that once this letter is out, then clearly it means that there has to be some level of diplomatic consultation that has to go on. How do you do this? How do you do this? How do you do this? And in trying to do that, basically they've drawn their attention because, for example, they've called for a meeting and the meeting was ignored. Only Togo attended, like you said, and of course, surprising to me. So when they say that they are pulling out, I believe that even the regional body will say, okay, what exactly is the way forward in addressing these issues? And like I said again, if I isolate the issues, go to Mali, for example, you know the role that President Jonathan has played in Mali over the years, with their challenges back and forth and so on and so on. So even the regional body, African Union, have actually been involved in what is going on in Mali for a very long time. And to that extent, I believe that, at this point in time, they've taken that action. The reason that they took that action is that they are obviously left with no choice, I believe. So they've taken that action to force the hands of ECOWAS to actually come to a talking point. Okay. And I believe that there will be some level of, considerations that may be made at some point. It's not, like I said, these things are not as easy as it is. If I have a Nigerian that is staying in Niger, Burkina Faso, or Mali, do you need to tell them that their ECOWAS passport is not going to work anymore? Mm-hmm. I mean, how do you do that? If you have to move cattle across, like we've always, do you now come and I ask you, are your cattle from Burkina Faso? No, they can't move. And are you going to do passports for them? Are you going to now tell traders that have been moving from manufacturers that are based in Nigeria and based in Mali and that are moving goods across with ease? So some of these things, like I said, we've just made a pronouncement, which the implementations are actually going to be much more difficult than just making the pronouncements.
All right, then. Mr. Ambassador, I'll just take a quick break now so that we won't be interrupted when you are speaking. And we'll also, when we come back from this break, take calls from our viewers. Stay with us, please.
Every second, every minute, every hour, and every day, time doesn't just tick away. It counts down to political decisions that shape our world.
This country must move.
Imagine the impact these decisions have on our lives. Some are consequential, others may leave us intrigued or baffled.
You will have no better friend and partner than Nigeria.
Step in and feel the frenzy like never before. Join me every weekday for an hour of fact-finding interviews where questions cut to the core.
What does Tinubu has that other 17 candidates do not have?
I will dig in to get to the heart of issues, from local politics to global insight. Join me as I unearth the power plays, jaw-dropping revelations, and the unfiltered truth. This isn't just politics, it's unraveling the stories that matter. Brace yourself for Politics Tonight every weekday at 8 p.m., where every decision echoes along the corridors of our lives. Politics Tonight, only on TVC News.
Welcome back, and we're looking at the situation in ECOWAS with 3 countries announcing their withdrawal, which is out of protocol, as you know by now. It was expected that if a country wanted to withdraw, they'd give a year's notice, and within that year they'd sort out all the things that needed to be sorted out. But as it is, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali have said they are pulling out, and they have done so. Now, Professor, I want to bring this a bit closer home, because yesterday we were considering the question of if they were to go their way, the way they have insisted on, the effect that this would have on our security. I imagine that they've been used, those countries have served as buffers to our scourge of kidnapping, terrorism, and banditry, because they have been working to sort of buffer us. Do you see this worsening Nigeria's struggle against those things? That's on the one hand, but let me just do the unprofessional thing and throw in another question. Our president is currently, to the best of my knowledge, I hope I'm not behind the news, in France. And, number one, President Tinubu spoke very, very boldly when the trouble first of all started that no to coup, absolute no to coup. That's on the one hand. Then he's been known to be quite friendly with President Macron, and right now he's said to be in France, and even before becoming the president, he's been known to be a friend of France and been visiting. All of this, you see how I just linked those two, our needs, and then our president, who also is the chairman of ECOWAS, I believe, who is friendly with the French president. Do you think all of this will be working against, they might not see it as just mere coincidences. Might they now start the campaign of the Nigerian president has never been our friend?
Is that me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. But you called professor, so I was a bit...
Oh, I'm sorry, Ambassador. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. No, thank you very much. I actually would like to make this point very clearly. I actually do not think that there is a nexus whatsoever relating to the president's visit to France and what decision these guys have taken. You remember there was a lot of pressure on Nigeria's president during, I think, sometime August last year after the junta, that military action should actually, take place in Niger. And that was shortly after the president took over office as the president of the Republic of Nigeria and was also elected as the leader of the regional body, ECOWAS. And the president actually rightfully resisted every attempt to push for military action in Niger. And in addition to all of this, there were consultations, I think a couple of meetings held in Guinea-Bissau and then in Abuja as well, where quite a lot of other presidents, including, I remember I was in Burundi at the time, and there was an invitation that was extended to Burundi president, who was also working with the ECOWAS conflict and peace resolution on African Union as well at the time. And there were issues back and forth in terms of, okay, what does the country want? What do they not want? So first, I don't think that the president's visit to France has got anything to do with what is going on at this point in time. But yes, you can also argue that, the president being a friend of France or, being a friend with the French president may also make them want to believe that, the president is not their friend. But how can a president that is leading the entire regional body not be a friend to member states of that regional body? The president is not saying that there has to be relations between France and any of these countries in question. That's not what the president is saying. Every country is sovereign, and they must actually do what they want to do. Of course, it has to also go with laws and treaties, and you don't just do anything you want to do. But what our position is that whatever you want to do it under a legitimately, democratically elected government. That's
okay, Ambassador. I beg your pardon for interrupting you, and I know that there's the other part of my double barrel question, but I don't want to lose Olatunde, who has called in from Ebutemeta in Lagos here. Good morning, Mr. Olatunde.
Good morning, sir. Mr. Yori.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm also by regard to your guest.
Sure.
So,
thank you.
I really understand. I really agree with your guest by saying the pulling out of the junta is like a tactics where they wanted the ECOWAS to come back to the table to come and resolve the problem on ground. But they have no other option than to look for an excuse where they will want the ECOWAS to want to meet them again and discuss the situation. So that's what I noticed in what is happening.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Olatunde, for contributing that. The ambassador had said that it was a measure of last resort, in his opinion, something to sort of jumpstart the process for sort of for talk. Let's talk about this. The sanctions are biting hard. Ambassador, going back to what you were saying, and I wanted you to kindly look at what this portends for our fight against banditry, terrorism, and kidnapping that Nigeria has been suffering from. What are the potentials for a worsening of those kind of situations? Do you see that?
Yes. Okay. Let me connect from where I stopped. I basically was saying that I honestly don't think that the president's visit to France has got anything to do with the pullout of these three countries. And I have to make that point very clearly. Secondly, what I think that, every administration will have a way they want to drive their foreign policy. This administration have come to say that there are 4 pillars for the foreign policy of this administration. Number 1 is democracy. Number 2 is development. Number 3 is demography. And the other one is actually strengthening our diaspora. So those are the 4 Ds. So the support for democracy is one of the things that is in the front line for Mr. President's foreign policy. And I believe that what has happened is that he's saying, you have your agitation, you have your concerns. Nigeria also have got theirs as well. Quite a lot of African countries and even, the ones that are not even within the country have got their concerns. So what we're saying is, what the president and the position of the regional body, pass on power to a democratically elected government. And whatever the concerns are, they can sever their relationship with France. I mean, they are not the first. Go to Rwanda. I said I once worked in Burundi. And that was actually a stone throw from Rwanda. You understand what happened between Paul Kagame and quite a lot of other countries. He called the bluff of France and quite a lot of other countries that he feels that their policies or what they had done in the past are affecting the country adversely. And of course, he had to do that under a legitimately democratically elected government. Now, come to the issue of insecurity. Yes, these are one of the major issues. You know, at some point, there was a joint task force between the Nigerian military and Nigerian military, and of course, even getting the local vigilantes involved in fighting terrorism and banditry across the northern hemisphere of Nigeria, the northern boundaries of, I think, about 5 or 6 states or thereabouts. So yes, this is a big concern. And part of the reasons why I believe that the regional body and, of course, the leader being our president have to come to a point where there has to be consultation. It's because if you now have a situation where borders are closed, so it means that you can actually be attacked from these border countries without you having a direct response. And some of these challenges, and it's not that like there's a Mexican-like fence or we don't have any wall that is separating us. And even if you have a wall, for crying out loud, you know, what about wars that are, you know, that go on around the airspace and all of that? So there's a lot of concern that I believe that we need to discuss. Yes, I believe that this issue or this decision will heighten security concerns across the borders.
Okay, let me bring in Bobby now. Thank you very much, Bobby, for holding on. Bobby is in Taraba State, Jalingo. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Uncle Yori, I just want to give kudos to these French countries that are in Africa. Uncle Yori, we have our own problems, and these people, these countries have their right to get out of ECOWAS. Look, we have different issues that we understand that our countries are supposed to sit down and think much about, especially like in Nigeria. I was not happy when some African presidents were actually against what happened in some of these countries that are actually trying to opt out of the ECOWAS. We have our peculiar problems. Let every country sit down and resolve its own issues. I'm totally in support of what these countries want to do, and they owe nobody an apology in opting out of the economic, as in ECOWAS itself. Thank you, and God bless you for a job well done all the time. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, Bobby, out of Jalingo there. Now, what Bobby's just said there, it sort of echoes a couple of impressions or opinions that we also got yesterday. Other people saying that, look, let everybody paddle his own canoe, especially as they know where the shoe is pinching. And this, just like Bobby has said, those people also express the impression that, look, if they want to go, let them go. And in any case, you can't resolve anything without taking their particular immediate feeling into consideration, not submerging it under a sort of a communal feeling of the regional body. How is that aspect going to be handled, Ambassador?
You see, I understand this position very well. And that's all, you know, self-preservation is always a default position that everybody must take. But here is the point. We live in a world that you must have to relate with the rest of the world. You cannot operate a closed economy under this circumstance. There is no country in the world that can afford to do that. I'm an economist by training. You cannot deal with your issues just internally. There must be things that you must do with the rest of the world and with the rest of your neighbors, for example. Yes, it's like I said, make no mistake about this. Everybody's worried about the influence and the past actions of France on some of these francophone countries. It's a no-brainer. Nobody goes there to argue. It's an issue that must stop, and it's an issue that we can't even get them, you know, under normal circumstances to begin to even pay reparation or do some level of compensation on some of the atrocities that have been committed, you know. But what we are saying is very simple. Under what arrangements can you get that? You will need the help of other regional bodies. You will need everybody coming together to echo the same thing to say that this is not actually right. Okay? So what we're saying, is like I said, they're right to pull out. But now, if my brother from Jalingo's brother is staying in Niger Republic, or if he's living in Mali, or if he's living in Burkina Faso, Does he understand the difficulty that the person that is a Nigerian that is living in Burkina Faso will face as a result of this pullout? Does he understand that the man will probably need to come back to Nigeria and begin to do a new kind of passport and begin to seek for visa and begin to even ask for residence permit to be able to go back into where he used to walk in freely, maybe have even established families and have a lot of businesses running there. So I totally understand the point where the call is for people to look inwards and find a way to begin to solve their problems. I totally understand that. But I'm saying that you cannot, no country can operate as an island. You must operate with your neighbors. In the last administration, Buhari's foreign policy mantra was Nigeria first, its neighbors, and then Africa. So Africa became the centerpiece for Nigeria's foreign policy. As a big brother, we always ensure that there is peace. We always even give economic assistance when necessary. So right. What I'm saying is that I understand his concern. Countries must take responsibility and take certain decisions with respect to some of the past issues that has happened with our relations with European countries. But that cannot be done effectively under a junta. There must be a legally elected government that should be able to sit down and look at these issues. And through the voice of the people, through their legislation and all of that, they begin to find ways of addressing this issue. I just gave an example of Rwanda. Yes. They also have got ways. In fact, they've addressed the matter squarely over time. That at some point, even I think President Macron had to offer an apology to the people of Rwanda at some point over the role that they played while the genocide was going on in the early 90s in Rwanda. So there are options on the table. Like I said,
I beg your pardon, Ambassador. Sorry, yes. Ambassador, for interrupting you. George in Ikeja has been waiting for a while. Good morning, Mr. George, and thank you for holding on.
Thank you. Good morning, Uncle Yeri, and good morning to the Ambassador. Uncle Yeri, people have to know that there is no country in this world that can be on its own without interacting with any other country. It's not possible. Uncle Yeri, you said something. I don't know if I didn't understand you. That the military, the junta in those countries are claiming that they have the people's support. What was the criteria used? Were they voted for? Were votes counted? How did they come to the conclusion that they have the people's support? The people voted and some people were elected. They came and brushed away those people. And they want to be going to United Nations General Assembly. They want to go to African Union meeting in Kharkiv as military people because they have a right to be what they want to be in their country. Now, every country, especially African countries, we're always struggling to say we want to be, to develop like the countries in Europe that we struggle to live there and enjoy what they have. But we're forgetting that those people did not get there in one day. We don't want to do what they do that made them to get there. And somebody is saying if they want to pull out, they have the right to pull out, support them. Nobody said they should not pull out. But follow the right procedure. If I were ECOWAS on theory, I knew from the beginning that this junta, they are looking for ways to get what they want inside ECOWAS. But it cannot be. They have to do what ECOWAS treaty says. If I were ECOWAS, I will not even honor their resignation. They are the ones who should be calling for negotiation, not ECOWAS calling for negotiation.
Okay. Well, all right then, Mr. George. Thank you very much for that. As our guest has said, there's a lot of diplomatic work that still has to be done. It is not satisfactory to ECOWAS that 3 countries are pulling out as they are so. But then the satisfaction of ECOWAS is one thing. The country is saying that we are ourselves. We have a right to self-determination, especially if we don't think that we are getting a good deal. In fact, they think they're getting a raw deal, from the body. But, that is up to, that the people can talk about that. Because everybody is talking about orderliness and due process. Say, look, there's a process. We have to follow that process. Well, the very existence of a military junta, first of all, scatters all of that. They have no, and that was the point that our president, who is the chairman of ECOWAS, I believe, that's the point he sought to make, that we've gone past that stage, and I think he was at great pains to say that we don't want to revisit that kind of thing, and that's why he seemed to be uncompromising, and that's why he said at a certain time that without not even taking the military option off the table, although he after that backpedaled by not calling for it. So these are the situations that you have said, Ambassador, we're going to have to work at. But a lot will depend on, and ECOWAS might not want to give any, ECOWAS doesn't want to give any leeway in what it has said because it is so very gung-ho about democracy. And I don't know. You said that, well, within a year, maybe if ECOWAS, if we continue to talk with them, you think that within a year, a lot of diplomatic ground can be covered?
Honestly, like I said, we suddenly want to, develop our country and become like European countries. But take, for example, how long did it take the UK to move away from the European Union? First of all, there was a referendum, and then they had to have like a plan, and they kept extending it because some of the issues, there are quite a lot of issues under consideration that you must begin to rethink. So it's okay to make that announcement, but I believe that they must follow the law. The treaty is very clear, and they were signed, they are signatories to it. They can't just come and renege on an agreement. However, like I said, okay, if you pull out from treaty, now how are the protocols? How do you now want us to relate with? How does Niger want to relate with Nigeria going forward? How does Mali and Burkina Faso want to relate with the rest of the regional body going forward? There are countries even within the region. For example, Ghana just announced a policy, visa-free policy for the rest of Africa. It was Rwanda first a couple of years ago, and Kenya has followed, and Ghana is doing the same. And I'm sure that as time goes on, quite a lot of African countries will begin to do a lot of these things. But the point is that Nigeria maintains a diplomatic relations and maintains embassies and high commissions across most of the countries within the continent. So now, how do you want us to look at you? So Nigeria should stop, respecting or recognizing ECOWAS passports that are coming from these countries? Is that what these countries are saying? So once someone is moving and it comes with ECOWAS passport, no, it has to now be, what is even the cost? Like I said, sometimes leaders take these decisions without understanding the cost of these things.
All right.
So again, my point is that they must follow the laid-down procedure. And I believe that there's a need for continued talk. It's actually in their best interest that they don't pull out because they need the regional body to help them deal with quite a lot of issues that they are facing today.
Okay, Mr. Ambassador, I want to thank you very much. We're going to have to leave it here. I definitely know that we haven't heard the last about this particular subject, and we'll just keep an eye on it. Wanting the unity of Africa and hoping that this would not create an unnecessary crack. Thank you very much for being on our program this morning.
Thank you very much.
Indeed. So we're going to have to leave it here. That's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folare. Bye-bye for now.
Good morning.
Good morning. Why is your sun shining like this?
Can't you see that Harmattan season is here? We need to protect our children from